COBRA skills training. COBRA is the Complete Business Reference Advisor. It's an amazing online library, a database tool, which means it's full of information. It's full of the most up-to-date information, correct information. It's sort of stewarded and maintained by official UK organization. Mm-hmm. So it's a very exciting tool to know how to use. And actually, I'm not going to be telling you about how to use COBRA. We have a very special guest here today. Her name is Esther Greenwood, and she's joining us from the Small Business Research and Enterprise Center. It used to be called the City Business Library, and that's because it is the City of London's premier business support and information center. Esther is a business librarian and advisor there, and she has been supporting businesses in London for 15 years.
Oh, good.
It's pretty amazing. So she enjoys hearing about entrepreneurs' ideas and helping them succeed in building profitable and sustainable businesses. So the City Business Library, the Small Business Research and Enterprise Center, contains a huge wealth of practical information about starting and running your own business. And it also gives its members access to all different tools and informational resources. So COBRA is one of those tools. As many of you have already done, you do need to become a member of the Small Business Research and Enterprise Center. And through your membership, which is free, just like any library membership, you become a member of the library. It's free. And then once you're a member, you can actually access the database from any device with your membership number. So that's what's so amazing. So I'm going to turn it over to Esther in just a moment, but you all should have signed up to be a member of the library, and that means that you can sign into COBRA. Esther is going to show you how to sign into COBRA. That's the first thing she's going to do. And you can use your membership number to sign in and sort of follow along, or you can just watch Esther's amazing presentation. She's going to show what COBRA is all about, how to use it, and show us a few examples. And you could also then watch our recording and follow along with the recording later. So you can either follow along with her now, or you can listen and then apply it to your own business later. But we're about to get started. Esther, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Adele. And it's a real pleasure to be able to speak with you all this afternoon. So thank you very much for inviting me. As Adele mentioned, I work for the Small Business Research and Enterprise Centre. It's a bit of a mouthful, so we shorten it to SBREC. We call it SBREC amongst ourselves. And basically, we were set up to help anybody who is starting and running their own business, so people like yourselves. And we have a wealth of information about doing business here in the UK and overseas as well, should you, some of you might perhaps be thinking of trading overseas as well. But we have a wealth of information about starting and running your own business. And as Adele mentioned, there's a database called COBRA, and that's the one that I'd like to share with you today and show you how it works. And also, as Adele mentioned, you can access it remotely, and I'll explain how to do that as well. So just to start off with, I'm going to share my screen. And you should hopefully now be able to see my screen and see the website for the Small Business Research and Enterprise Centre.
All looks good, Esther.
Excellent, thank you. So you'll see just in the left-hand corner, it says City of London Corporation, and that's because they're the people who fund us. It's the local government of the City of London, so we're part of them, and thus we're part of their website as well. So this is our homepage, and I will put this in the chat, and I'll also put some slides in the chat later on as well, with all the website addresses, so you'll have those. So this is our main homepage, and as I scroll down, you'll see it says SBREC membership. So for those of you who haven't yet signed up for membership, it's very easy. You just scroll down and click on free access membership, and there's a form to fill in. There's a form for everything in life, I'm afraid, and SBREC unfortunately is no exception. So you will just need to fill in this form, basically about you and your business. We need to know where you live and your email address. Those are the essential bits, really. At the bottom, we also have a newsletter, and you can sign up for that. It comes out every 2 weeks, so we don't keep sending them out all the time. If you'd like it, fine. If you rather not receive it, that's fine too. So when you've filled out the form, you'll need to agree to the terms and conditions that are here. And then when you scroll up, you can click on this big green button that says join. And what will happen is that we will be sent an email to say that you filled in the form, and my colleague, she will reply to the email and she'll tell you what your membership number is. So we won't be sending you a piece of plastic in the post. We'll just be sending you the email with your membership number. And that's what you'll need in order to be able to use COBRA. So the next thing is how do we use COBRA? So here I'm back on the SBREC homepage. I'll come back to the homepage, and you'll see a heading that says data and resources. So if you click on that, and then this heading that says access to SBREC online databases, and this will take you through to the page where you can access the databases. This is also the same page that you will see if you come into the centre and use the resources here. So as I mentioned, COBRA is available to you remotely, and you'll see the top drop-down menu here says available remotely. And with your free card, free membership number, you'll be able to use Business Source Premier, COBRA, European Newsstream, and Exporters Almanac. Adele was telling me that one person on this course is interested in the import and export of wine. You will find a lot of useful information on the Exporters Almanac. So if you click on that link, the Exporters Almanac will open up for you. However, today we're going to be looking at COBRA. As Adele says, it stands for the Complete Business Reference Advisor, but you really don't need to remember that this is called COBRA. And when you come to log on, there will be a box at the top here in the middle of the screen that says ticket number, and in there you'll need to type in your membership number, and then COBRA will open up and you'll be able to use it. I'm using a laptop here to demonstrate it today. Some of you may be watching us on your mobile phone. It is formatted for use on a mobile phone, so you can use COBRA quite easily on a mobile phone. It doesn't have lots of fancy colours on it. It's mostly in black and white, but all the information is available in a mobile format, so you'll be able to log on and you'll be able to log on and use it on your mobile phone. And as well, our own website is mobile friendly as well. And again, you'll be able to easily click on the parts about registering for membership, or on the database page as well. You'll be able to view those without any problem. So COBRA's got lots and lots of really useful information about starting and running your own business. And Adele has given me an idea of what some of your businesses are. I see that you've got a lot of creative businesses joining us today, and also a number of food and beverage businesses are represented as well. So that's really nice to see. She also mentioned that there were 2 people who are thinking of opening a social enterprise. There's information about social enterprises as well, so we'll have a look at that. And somebody who's looking at the health and wellness sector, as well as the wine importation. So it's quite a bit we're going to have a look at, but hopefully I'm going to show it to you, and hopefully you'll understand. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat bar, and then either Lucas or Adele perhaps can tell me if any questions have come up that you would like me to answer. So if that's okay with everybody, I'll start showing you how to use COBRA. So the first thing COBRA has over here on the left hand side is a button. It says business opportunity profiles, and these are profiles for different businesses. There are about 400 or so of them here on the website. They're all set out in the same way, and you'll notice that on the right hand side they've all got a date. So the top two were written this month in June, or updated this month in June, and then below that a number of them were updated in May as well. You can search either by A to Z. This list is in date order, or you can search by category by clicking on category. And I believe we've got a number of you looking at the creative industries. So here we'll pick up, I believe we've got somebody who's making pottery, a pottery and ceramics maker. So we'll have a look at that and just go through it. So these business opportunity profiles are all set out in the same way, and you'll see these headings at the top of the screen. So introduction, qualifications and skills, key market issues and trends. So that's going to be what the demand is for your particular product or service. Trading, commercial and legal issues. And that section is very helpful because it also details startup costs, and you'll be needing to think about the amount of money you need to invest in starting your business. And the startup costs section will help to give you an accurate and idea of what your startups might be costing you. Just below that, legislation. There are pieces of legislation that every business has to comply with, and pieces of legislation that just some businesses have to comply with. So, for example, the food hygiene regulations, that only concerns food businesses. But there will be various bits of legislation that any business needs to comply with, and we'll have a look at those. And then at the bottom, it gives further sources of information, other organisations that might be able to help you start your business, in this case as a pottery and ceramics maker. So at the top we have an introduction, so telling us what the pottery and ceramics maker does. In other words, they're making 3D objects from clay, essentially, and it goes on to explain a bit about where they might exhibit and how they might sell their works as well. Just below this is a section called qualifications and skills. Now, to be a potter, there are no qualifications legally required, which is good. You don't have to have had any special training, but you just need a good deal of talent, obviously. My pottery skills are 0. So you do need to have a lot of talent, obviously, to work as a potter. However, there are some courses here that are listed. Some people might have done a ceramics course, for example, or an arts course. So, and there are other courses as well, sort of weekend or residential art courses that you might wish to undertake. But it will list here courses that are specific for people looking to start a pottery business. Then just below that comes details of some courses or workshops or webinars that are useful for anyone starting any type of business. And although nobody really enjoys paying tax, the HMRC, Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, so the Taxation Office, they've got a lot of free webinars and videos, and they're really useful and easy to understand. And they've worked very hard over the past 10 or 12 years to make it easy for people to start submitting all their tax online, to work with HMRC online. And so they've made it really easy. And what HMRC want to do is to help you get your taxes right from the beginning, rather than to suddenly be sending you a huge tax bill, which nobody wants. Just below this are some other courses, general courses, so on social media training and on GDPR. GDPR is about keeping your customers and your suppliers' data safe. So for example, you might well know your customer's bank code or your supplier's bank code because you're having to pay them. So GDPR is about keeping people's personal data, so their email address, phone number, address, web address, and anything like that. Oh, sorry, email address, anything like that, keeping their personal data safe. And there's a short course on that as well, listed here. Just below this is a section called Sector Awareness, and these are reports that have been written by outside organisations, which you can look at and which give you a guide to what's going on at the moment in the ceramics world, what's happening, sort of exhibitions and that kind of thing. And then just below that is a list of other reports talking about key market issues and trends. So this is part of your market research. This is part of understanding who your customers might be and how much they might be spending on your particular product or service. In this case, how much they might be spending on buying items of art or items of pottery, pieces of art like that. So these are links through to different reports that have been written that will help you to start to think about who your customers are going to be. And of course, you want to make sure that you're going to make a profit. So this might give you also an idea of the type of fees that you might have to charge for your work. Coming down here a little further is the section on trading, commercial and legal issues. Obviously, over the past couple of years, coronavirus, COVID-19 has had quite an impact, although now the restrictions around coronavirus have been largely withdrawn here in the UK, but there is guidance about it should you want it from the gov.uk website. There's a link here. So if you're a potter, you might wish to have your own studio. And so here it's talking about where you might rent a studio or where you might find a studio. You might convert part of your a room at home, for example, and use that as your studio as well. But here it talks about finding and paying for premises, but also things like, are you going to have to pay business rates on your premises? So business rates is the commercial equivalent of paying council tax on your home or on your flat or something like that. So it's talking about about how you're then going to keep your studio safe. Are you going to need things like CCTV to keep your studio or shop safe, things like that. Also, if you're going to be working from home, you will need the agreement of either your landlord or your mortgage company, especially if you're going to have a huge kiln, which obviously gets very hot and could potentially be a source of ignition that could start a fire. So you have to be quite careful about about the equipment that you're going to have and you're going to use at home. But this here talks all about that and what you need to do. I mentioned earlier some startup costs, and here we can see what the startup costs might be. So an electric kiln from £1,400 to £5,000, not a cheap piece of equipment. A potter's wheel from around £700 to £3,000. So this section here will really help you to think about how much you're going to have to invest in starting your business. These will be your startup costs. And this section here will particularly help you to think about it. Fortunately, what it also does is it refers you to businesses that might supply you with the things you need. So for example, kiln care which obviously sells the kilns which a potter would bake their clay objects in. And just below that, it starts to talk about the prices for pottery making supplies. So how much you might pay for clay or glazes, obviously dependent on the type and quality. But here it also lists those who are businesses that supply those sorts of materials and tools. So you've already got quite a bit of information to help you think about where you're going to source the things you need to start your business and indeed the costs for it. Those of you particularly who are in the creative businesses will have to think about something called intellectual property. And intellectual property is copyright, trademark, design and patent. And it's how you protect your designs so that nobody else can copy them. And equally, it's about you not copying somebody else's design and pretending that what you've produced was actually made by somebody else. And copyright affects any creative business. It also starts to affect any business that has got a logo, that produces, that makes, that invents things. Those are called patents. That's how you protect an invention. So copyright and design protection and for trademarks and patents as well is something that you will have to think about. And it's a legal aspect of doing business that businesses sometimes don't realise how important it's going to be to them. So you really do need to be aware of copyright and design protection if you're working in the creative businesses. So this section talks about that. The next thing is thinking about how you're going to sell all your pieces to the public. And it's starting here with talking about selling via online marketplaces. Excuse me a moment. And so one of the online marketplaces that's quite well known is Anchor. There is another website that TERN have set up which is associated with TERN, which is called Anchor, where some of the other creative businesses that TERN have supported, they also sell through that. So Adele and Lucas will probably be able to give you some more information about that particular online marketplace. Alternatively, you might choose to set up your own e-commerce website. And there's a short guide here on platforms which you can use in order to sell your products. Scrolling down, if you're a potter, you might also think about selling through galleries, perhaps where you've exhibited your work. And again, it tells you about that and about the agreements you should draw up with any gallery where your work is exhibited or which sells your work, in order to make sure that you're getting a fair return on the products that you've made. Really, this is your work. It's how you're going to be earning your living, and therefore you need to make sure that it's sold at a realistic price, and that the galleries don't overcharge you, essentially. So here, there's just a piece about that here. Just below that, it talks about consumer contracts. Consumer contracts affect every business. They might be slightly different according to the type of business, the service or product sold, but generally you will be drawing up a kind of contract with someone. So if you're a potter and you're making a bespoke piece, somebody has commissioned you to make something for them, then you will be drawing up a kind of contract with them as to agree as to what you're going to supply the customer with. And further below this, it talks about some other business regulations. Materials in contact with food. I hadn't actually thought about that in connection with pottery, but of course it will be necessary. So you need to, if you're a potter, you need to state whether or not it's safe for the materials that you've used to come into contact with food. Here it outlines the dangers of high levels of lead or cadmium if they're in the glazes or in the pottery, which shouldn't therefore come into contact with food, so people don't ingest it. But so it just offers a caution on that. Earlier on, I talked about data protection. Again, this is mentioned here about keeping your suppliers and your customers' details safe. The next thing is to work out how much you're going to charge for your particular products and services. And in each business opportunity profile, it gives a section on pricing and VAT and some examples of how much you might charge for a particular product or service. So these are some links through to some other pottery sites so you could see how much people are selling their work for, to give you some idea of how much you might reasonably expect your work to sell for too. So how are you going to be paid? Well, you might have your online shop, and that might have something like that might have a cart already built in, a shopping cart function already built in. Otherwise, say you've got, if you've got a market stall, you might take cash, or you might use one of those small chip and pin or tap and go readers from someone like Zettel or Square. And again, there's information about that too. Depending on how big the piece of pottery is that you're selling, you might need to think about how you're actually going to transport it to your customer, or if your customer is going to be responsible for arranging the transportation. A bit of information about that here. Now, just about any workplace is going to have to comply with health and safety to make sure that people are safe when they are in the workshop or moving around the workshop or visiting the studio. So making sure that members of the public and anybody else who you might employ is safe in that location. And there will be a section on workplace health and safety for every business that's listed. Getting rid of waste is quite a big topic. Also, not just for potters, but also for people who run food shops. The disposal of waste food is quite tightly controlled, really, to prevent lots of vermin running around and trying to scavenge through old food. So for every business profile, there will be a section about waste disposal and trade, and you'll see information about that listed here. Trade bodies are organisations which represents different types of businesses. So for this example here, it's given us the Craft Potters Association. And these associations can be very helpful because they'll produce a magazine or an e-magazine every so often, so you can keep abreast of what's going on in the market, what the demands are. Sometimes these professional associations are also very good at arranging insurance for particular types of business. So it can be worth having a look and seeing what services these professional associations can offer you with regard to things like insurance. Next, of course, how you're going to promote yourself and your business. There's a section here on different websites where you might register or where you might exhibit. And here is a section on insurance. Every business will need insurance. Every business, what insurance is needed will vary according to the type of business, of course, but you will need insurance. And this here will talk about the relevant pieces of insurance that you might need for your business. Just below this is a section on legislation, so all the laws that you might need to comply with, and it will give you kind of a detail about those. A bit more about health and safety. And just below that, we've got some links. So a link here through to a piece, these ones in red are links through to other sheets within the database within COBRA. So for example, we've got an overview of the creative industries and what's going on in the creative industries. And just below that, we've got a list of useful contacts. So different organisations working in the craft sector. And again, you'll be able to get in contact with them through that. Adele and Lucas, I was wondering if there have been any questions so far?
I've seen a few messages. About 10 minutes ago, Majid asked, do I have to consider business rates if my services will be provided online, remotely, or from home?
If you've got a warehouse where you store things, then you might have to consider business rates. But if you're working from home, certainly if you're say something like a website designer, then business rates won't be an issue for you. If, however, you decide to convert your shed or your garage, then you might have to consider business rates. And there will be pages of information on COBRA about business rates, and you could always contact your local authority and ask them as well, because they're the people responsible for collecting them.
Thank you. Friends, do we have any other questions for Esther so far?
Okay.
Great.
Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, please. Sounds like everything's been explained extremely well so far.
Okay, thank you very much. So something that Adele mentioned was that some of you may be thinking of trading from a market stall or doing street trading, and then other people, I think in the previous question was somebody asking about trading online, and there are rules that you have to follow really for trading online, and if you're going to trade from a market stall or from a street stall. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you an example of where you might find this information. Maged, did you have a question? No, okay.
Oh, yes, I do.
Hi.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Just I was trying to unmute myself. If part of the services, maybe I will hire a place for a clinic, let's say, but it will be something occasionally upon request from the clients.
Yeah.
Well, in that situation, do I have to consider the business rates, even if it was something that?
If you're renting a room on a ad hoc basis, just for an hour here and an hour there, then probably not, because you'd expect the people who own the clinic, who own the room that you're renting, they would be covering it. If you were to rent a room sort of like on a longer term basis, then I would expect your rent to include the business rates. The business, if say you bought a building or you rented the whole of a building, then you would be responsible for the business rates. That makes sense.
Understood. Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. So I'll look now at a market stall. Sorry. I spoke for too long, it logged me out. And here at the top, so I searched in the search bar here on the right, and you'll see the first thing that's come up is applying for a market stall license. Again, it's got the date on it. It was updated earlier this year in February. So you can see how up to date the information always is. And here it tells you about the different types of licenses that you might need if you're to sell in a market. Some markets are run by the local authority, by the local councils. Other markets might be run on private land. So it depends. There will also be restrictions about taking your van onto the site to unload the goods onto your stall. Some of you may be using a stall once every so often, and others of you may be might have a permanent stall in a market. But on here, it talks about everything that you need to think about when you're taking out a market stall license. There's also a casual license as well if you're going to be doing it from time to time. There's a bit about the fees here. Most local authorities charge for license applications ranging from around £20 to several £100s. So again, that's another business cost that you have to consider. You're going to have to cover that cost out of your profits. And of course, you'll have to pay the rent for the market stall as well. That's going to vary depending on where you are trading. You will need insurance, and that's covered here. It also here lists specialist insurers. So you could shop around and see what kind of deal you can get. You can have a look at these links here. Some markets, of course, are run on private land, and you'll have to contact the organizer there. Again, they will expect you to have suitable insurance when you apply for a license on there. So that's a bit there about applying for a market stall. If you want to do trading on the street, that is permitted in certain cases. You'll need to apply for a street trading license, and again, there's a sheet of information about that as well. Here we are, applying for a street trading license. Last updated in March, so nice and up to date. And of course, it tells you about what you will need to do to get a street trading license. Some of you might be thinking about running a mobile food van, for example. You will probably need a street trading license in order to do that for wherever you're going to set up your van. Somebody earlier was talking about trading online, and there's also some information about that as well. There's a lot of things really to get your head around when you're starting a business, the things that you need to know, and hopefully COBRA will be something that will help you with that. So there are two things up here at the top. So there's this top one, legal requirements for selling goods to UK consumers online, legal requirements for business websites, trading via Amazon's particular information about that. But we'll go for the top one, which goes through in quite a lot of detail about how you might sell your products if you're selling to people living in the UK, and how you will sell online. And you can see here from the contents here at the top, is it talks about how you're going to take payment, and confirming that you've got the payment, the delivery, any refunds, and again it highlights data protection as well, as being an important aspect that you'll need to consider. So you can come on to COBRA and see what you might need to think of when you're registering online. Adele and Lucas, have there been any further questions?
I am just seeing from Mehdi the question about online marketplaces and online social media. But that was a little while ago. Mehdi, do you still have a more specific question perhaps? Mehdi, if you can hear me.
Hello.
Hey, did you have
Hi,
a more specific question for Esther by any chance? When you said, what do you mean?
Well, from the social media aspect is like, marketplace. If it's not your product, people just using your marketplace to sell their own products and items. Is this more responsibility or is less responsibility you have?
You'll need to start reading up on that. Are you going to be ensuring that the goods are provided to the customer, or are you just producing a platform that other people can sell through?
Yeah, of course, there should be some like customer service and stuff like that too. Well, it's not my items. This is the others. They just sell it through the platform.
So other people are selling things through a platform, is that right? I understood.
Yes.
You. Okay. The nearest thing, there's one here about trading via Amazon, which is obviously which is an online platform. And it might be worth reading this one to see if it's got any information about the legal liability of Amazon. We'll probably have, I'm afraid you'll have to go through and read it. But it does talk here about orders and deliveries. So when people are trading through your website, it would be a good idea to check. You know, it's also important to understand what your obligations are. If somebody's ordering through you, how are you going to let them know that something's been ordered? How are you going to let a potential business know that they've got a potential customer? So I think it would be useful to you at least to read this page to understand some of the obligations that you might have. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you. I will read this later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Adele, if it's okay, I was going to move on. I think you've got a number of food and beverage businesses represented here this afternoon. So I was going to move on to look at one of those. Is that okay?
Please, that would be wonderful.
Okay, so what I was going to show you was, I think there's a catering business that's represented here today. So hopefully. So this was a profile that was updated just last month about a cater and buffet service. And you'll see that it's set out in the same way as the profile that we looked at for a pottery and ceramics maker. But here, there are some qualifications that people who work in any part of the food sector will definitely profit from doing. And one of these is the level 2 food hygiene course. And this is not expensive, it's about £25 to do. But here under the qualifications and skills, it does list a lot of the food hygiene qualifications that will be useful to anyone who's working in a food business. It might be that they're a caterer in their restaurant, they might be on a mobile takeaway, they might be doing their business from home, making cakes at home. But it's very important that anyone working with serving or making food understands about food hygiene. And on here, this gives quite good details about the courses that are available and that it is worth doing. Again, it tells you what the cost is so that you can account for in your business startup costs. Again, how to keep yourself aware of what's going on, all the changes in the hospitality business. At the moment, there's quite a struggle for staff in the hospitality business. So that's something that will be mentioned here in these particular articles. And coming down a little further, what's going on in the market at the moment, what the demand is for catering services at the moment. So some of you, with your food business, it might be that you start trading from home, and so it does have information about using a home-based kitchen. This is something that applies either to caterers, or if you're making food products and you're starting to make them at home, you must make sure that your kitchen environment is suitable, and it lists the kind of things that you need to think about here. It will also tell you that you will need to contact the local authority 28 days before you start your food business, and they will come out and inspect the area. They will make sure that it is clean, that it is safe, that it's hygienic, and they will do that whether you're running a mobile takeaway, whether you're doing your catering from home, or whether you're running a restaurant, cafe type business or commercial kitchens. Any food business has to be registered with the local authority, with your local council, and there's information about that just here. Also talks about leasing a catering kitchen, should that be relevant to you, and then further information here about the food business registration. And you'll see here it says all business premises, including home-based kitchens, must be registered with the Environmental Health Department of the local council. So every food, it's one of the things to really underline, because during the past 2 years, there've been a lot of people starting their business from home, indeed starting making food from home. And this registration of their food business is something which people generally weren't aware, but it is a requirement that you do so. Further food and hygiene regulations. If you are a caterer, how are you going to deliver your buffet? How are you going to get the food to the client? Is it going to be something? Are you going to be catering for a small number of people? In which case you could use something like a box like you see Deliveroo or Just Eat have on the back of their bikes, or are you going to need a particular van? And how are you going to keep the food hot, or how are you going to keep it chilled? So all things that you will need to think about with any transportation of food as well. If you are supplying alcohol, you will need to have a license for that as well. Again, that's administered by your local council, and there will be a short course that you might need to do. But then it gives details here about alcohol licensing. Just below that, it was talking about some of the other things that we saw on the profile of the potter, so things like health and safety, how you're going to take payment and things like that. So they're very much, all these business profiles are very much set out in the same way. Sorry. I mentioned the registration of food businesses, and there is actually a particular piece of information on that, which emphasises the importance of registering any food business. Which will hopefully come up. Here we are. This one here, and it's common. This food registration, the registration of premises is common to any food business. I think, Adele, you said that one person was interested in buying a franchise for a coffee cart or for a coffee bar, a coffee shop franchise. There's information on here about franchising or buying a franchise. And this is information about any type of franchise, but as Adele particularly mentioned this, we'll have a look at it. So buying a business format franchise, this here tells you a bit about how franchise.
Has she gone again?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, that's sad. Well, we've only got a few minutes left. Let's see if she makes it back. In the meantime, friends, if you have any last questions for Esther about COBRA, I would highly suggest popping them in the chat now so that we can ask her before she leaves. So yeah, if you have any questions, and has everybody received their membership number from the library and been able to sign into COBRA using their membership number? So you should have received like a confirmation of having applied to become a member, and then it's like an automatic confirmation, and then in that automatic confirmation it will have said, we will send you your membership ID number next, and then within 24 hours from that you would have received another email that has the ID number, and that's the number that you use to sign into COBRA, right?
Yes, that's
Sorry,
right.
Esther, we lost you again.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I've asked everyone if they had any last questions for you to please put them in the chat, but just looking at the time, there's about 4 minutes left. So
Okay.
the last thing we saw you speaking about was
Franchising.
yes, franchising, the coffee franchise. Yes, that's right.
Okay. So here there's information about franchising and the things you need to think about. It is worth, if you are thinking of buying a franchise, it is worth speaking to a lawyer and have them check any contract before you sign it. Always a good idea. Also on COBRA, there are some events listed. One of which is the British and International Franchise Exhibition. And this will be taking place actually tomorrow and on Saturday at Olympia. So on here you'll find a list of exhibitions and events that are taking place, and they're often free to attend, and you can go and wander around the stalls and speak to people. So this that can be very useful. In November there will be the Business Startup Show, and that will be taking place at Excel out in the Docklands. So hopefully that might be somewhere that you might wish to go to. Adele, was there anything else you wanted me to cover? You did ask about import and export.
Yeah, there's just 2 minutes left of the workshop, so maybe you could just show us import export, just because I know that some people are concerned about that, especially with Brexit.
Okay, sure. So there's a section here on running a business, and then another section on import and export. You can also search in the bar at the top, and there is specifically a piece here about moving goods between Great Britain and the EU. So that's very quick. So you can simply search for exporting in the bar. Hopefully it will come up with something. Is there anything else you would like me to cover?
Any last questions for Esther before we let her go? Any last questions about COBRA or about the SBREC even?
We have
About the library?
We have one request in the chat about the housing sector. If there's anything on housing sector.
Housing. There will be things. There's certainly a profile for a buy-to-let landlord. And here, so this is a quick search on the word housing. The regulator of social housing, social enterprise, buy-to-let landlord, an overview of the construction and property sales and letting market at the moment. Does that help?
Yeah, it looks like there's quite a bit on there actually.
Yeah.
So for Rukia, it looks like there's a lot on there around housing, especially when, you know, was it council that came up at the top? Yeah, regulatory for social housing. So quite interesting time to do that research.
Now, Esther, maybe you can tell us now that our entrepreneurs, everyone in this room is a member of the SBREC, what if they were to come and visit you, how would they do that, or what kind of benefits could they access from the library itself?
Yeah.
Oh, you're just breaking up a bit again. Oh, we may have lost her. Esther! So the SBREC is in the City of London. Excuse me. It's in the City of London. It's in the Guildhall. So right near the Barbican. I'm going to put the address in the chat here. The library is open Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. It's a library full of books like any other library. There's also tons of computers that all have these databases, and not just COBRA, but also market research databases, competitor and customer research databases, and lots of other really amazing business information collections. And then of course you can also get coaching and advice from the SBREC advisors like Esther and her colleagues. So it's a really amazing resource for anybody who's trying to start a business in London. And you know, why stop at TERN? You're all Londoners, so you have the right to access London's small business and startup support resource, the SBREC, just like any other Londoner can. So at some point, either during the summer program or even later, make sure to take advantage of your membership to this amazing library. And just don't forget, your membership lasts a year. You can renew it again for free after a year and be a member for as long as you want. I'm hoping that Esther comes back soon so that she can say goodbye and that we can say goodbye and thank you to her.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Please.
Yeah, are we gonna get like an update or something when the events are coming up? Like we did
The SBREC events.
I think the London one, yeah, whichever one.
Yeah, the
when we
library.
Yeah.
So TERN won't do that because it would be impossible for us to know all the events that they have. But what I would suggest is to follow them. So let's see. You could follow them on Twitter, probably. Business Research Enterprise is their Twitter name. They have an Eventbrite. You could, I'll put their Eventbrite link in the chat here. You could follow them on Eventbrite or follow them on Eventbrite or check back their Eventbrite. I'm sure as a member that there's a marketing newsletter email that you could get from them. So you could sign up for their newsletter. And yeah, they'll have tons of different events, networking events and the like. So Yeah, you can follow them there. Sometimes we get free tickets to their networking events. And in those cases, then we always send it out on the WhatsApp broadcast. So you can look up when, you know, the WhatsApp broadcast from the TERN community. Sometimes you might see Small Business and Research Enterprise Center. And that's when there's certain types of events they invite us to, and they give us free tickets for entrepreneurs. So sometimes we do, but we're not in the habit of always looking at what they do. Does that make sense? Okay. Thank you. Okay, you guys, sadly, Esther is not here, but if you'd like to write a thank you to her in the chat, I'll take a screenshot and make sure that she receives your message. So whatever you want to write, please write it in the chat. I will take a screenshot to send to Esther. And in the meantime, you're free to go. And thank you so much for your time. And I hope that you use COBRA and all of the amazing and correct information there to help you start your business.